This conference will now be recorded.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Wilk, would you like to do the roll call?
Sure. Rules for participation and etiquette. Oh, sorry. Trevor Dombach,
Here.
Tim Dugan,
Here.
Todd Farringer,
Here.
Brian Height,
Here.
Ellie. Here. Mark Luth, Dave Wilson.
Here. Also, I'd like to make note of township staff and consultants. Here tonight, we have Christopher Stroller, Township Long Range Planner, Dave Manhart, Township Director of Community Development, April Wilk, Township Land Development Coordinator, Tony Talarita from the Pitcock Company, Township Engineer, Jennifer Aldifer, Township Director of Legal Services. And Tom Petrucci, Township Manager. All right, we'll move on to the meeting rules.
Rules for participation and etiquette during planning commission meetings. For an orderly meeting wherein all attendees may be able to fully participate, we ask that you adhere to the following rules. In order that both in-person and remote attendees may hear all comments or questions, all in-person attendees will be required to use microphones at all times. We request that remote attendees please mute your microphone or telephone to avoid background noise that may cause interference in the meeting and make it difficult for others to hear. Staff may mute microphones or remote attendees if needed. Public questions and comments will be taken at periodic intervals throughout the agenda. Unless otherwise permitted by the chairman, residents shall limit their comment to no more than 5 minutes. The chairman or vice chairman, as the case may be, may extend comment beyond 5 minutes in his or her discretion. The chairman may rule out of order scandalous comments, irrelevant and redundant comments, and comments designed to disrupt the meeting. For in-person attendees, please sign in on the appropriate sign-in sheet. Please raise your hand to be recognized, then move to the podium when directed. State your name, address, and comment or question. For remote attendees, the chat box features will be active throughout the meeting. If you have a comment or question, please type your full name and address in the chat box. When you are recognized and so directed, please unmute your microphone and state your comment or question. Mute your microphone when done. For those who are accessing the meeting by phone only, staff will periodically ask for caller comments and unmute any callers. Callers must identify their name and address prior to making a comment. Your cooperation in adherence to these rules will ensure an orderly and respectful meeting.
Thank you. All right, we're on agenda item number 3, review and approval of the June meeting minutes. Does anyone have any comments?
I'll make a motion to approve as submitted.
Second. Go ahead, Diane. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? None opposed?
I'll abstain. I was absent.
I'll also abstain.
And 2 abstentions. All right, so moved. Agenda item number 4, subdivision review with the township staff presentation.
Thank you. This is an application to further develop the property located at 2700 North Cedar Crest Boulevard. The plan is proposing 5 building expansions to individual sections of the existing high school, consisting of an athletic entrance expansion, a cafeteria expansion, 2 classroom expansions, and a building addition on the 112-acre tract. In addition to the building expansions, the bus loop at the rear of the building will be extended to create 11 bus parking spaces. A new parking lot will be constructed at the southeast of the existing parking lot in the front of the school, which will add 111 new parking spaces, increasing the total parking spaces to 1,489. The property is served by public water and public sewer, is zoned rural residential. Parkland School District is the owner and applicant. At this time, the department is not recommending approval due to a number of outstanding issues. We request that those issues get addressed in all the comments and resubmit once they've been fully resolved. I believe the applicant is here to go over waiver and deferrals. I would like to bring your attention to page 9 of your packets. We've restructured the waiver and deferral sheets to try and condense and bring all the waiver and deferrals into one page. So you'll notice there's the item number is the actual section. There's the applicant's justification, and then any of the comments we received from our reviewing agencies are underneath that. So hopefully this will make it a little easier to go through and you won't have to flip between other comments to find them. In addition, for this project, at the last meeting, we talked about dividing the waivers and deferrals into the different sections. So you'll also notice in the deferral section that it's broken up into sections of the roads because we're dealing with primarily frontage improvements. So hopefully it's laid out in a pretty logical order and we can use that for discussion.
All right,
With that-
thank you. All right, I forgot to pull the audience other than the applicant and the applicant's representatives. Is there anyone in the audience specifically interested in this project? Okay. You'll have an opportunity to ask questions and whatnot, but we'll go through the presentations first, and then the planning commission will ask questions, and then after that, you'll have an opportunity. Is there anyone online specifically interested in this project?
There are several people online. I guess if you'd like to go through your presentation and then they can enter into the chat. If they would like to make any comments, we can go to the room first and then we can go to the online comments if there are any.
Yep. So everyone in the room and then everyone in the audience after the presentations and planning commission questions, they'll have an opportunity to speak. We just ask everyone provide their name and address for the record. All right, township engineer presentation.
Good evening. This plan has been submitted to our office a few times going through the process. As you know, it's a preliminary final plan, which adds a couple other elements to get full approval. Because of that, we're not recommending at this time. I've had a few good conversations with the team, with Laura. I think we have direction moving forward. So I think that it's definitely achievable, but need some plan work, need to see a little bit of the roadway improvements and what that's going to look like to gain our full approval. As of now, like Dave said, I think we're going to talk about waivers, deferrals. I'll be able to assist you with any comments or questions.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, applicant presentation. So just please state your name for the record.
I'm Laura Eberly from Ruther Bowen. I'm the site civil engineer on the project. We do want to talk about the waivers and deferral requests, but there was actually one item in the township engineer's letter that we'd like to get some direction from the planning commission on. It was comment number 7 towards the end of the letter, where it said the township should determine whether open space or fees in lieu of will be required, and an appropriate note should be placed on the plans. I believe with our last submission, our response to that comment was essentially that the school district, most of the school district property is already essentially open space available to the community. The practice fields are available, the tennis courts are available for use by the public. And in addition to that, the school has already dedicated almost 4 acres of land for recreational purposes to the township for the purpose of the Jordan Greenway. So we believe that we've already met the requirement for open space on this property, but the comment's kind of hanging around and we'd like some direction from the Planning Commission.
If I could just point everyone to the Parks and Rec letter on page 47. So Parks and Rec usually does make the recommendation for open space fees. They reviewed and recommend the applicant continue to work with the township, cooperative relationship with the school district, sharing facilities and allowing us to program. So that's recognized in the public or Parks and Rec review letter.
Thank you. Okay. I think with that, we would like to turn our attention to the waiver request. And I'm going to address the first waiver request that we had in regards to the slope requirement. So we were asking for a waiver allowing some grading steeper than 3 to 1. A maximum slope of 1.5 to 1 is proposed. And this is for very limited areas on the property. It has to do with the spray irrigation system that we're proposing. The spray irrigation system is proposed just south of the main driveway that goes through the school campus. That area is already a fairly steeply sloped area. And what we're proposing is that we need to do some grading in that area for installation of the spray irrigation system and a small road to allow for maintenance, continued maintenance of that system. So we've limited that to the extent possible. We are proposing areas of 1.5 to 1. That area currently ranges from 1.5 to 1 to 7 to 1. So like I said, there are existing steep slopes there. We are proposing a permanent erosion control blanket to help control any erosion or prevent any erosion in those graded areas. And all of those details were on the plans. And I believe that the geotechnical consultant, Hanover, did review that and had no objection to that waiver.
Yeah, we discussed this I believe it was last month, and I don't think there was any major concern with it, and we were waiting to get feedback from the geotech. So it does look like the geotech is okay with it. So with the waivers, I think we should go through all the waivers first before making a decision, because although they are separate, some of them are somewhat tied together. So does anyone on the planning commission have any questions about waiver request?
It does look like that looks like the only waiver is for the steep slope. Were you saying you wanted to run through all the deferrals?
Yeah, through the waivers and
Okay.
deferrals, unless anyone think other, do it now. Okay, yeah. Yeah, since this is the only waiver, does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the waiver as submitted.
I'll second.
Right? Roll call?
Actually, since
Didn't-
everyone is present tonight, we don't need a roll call. We can just do a.
All right, those in
Okay.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? None opposed? So moved.
All right, and I'm going to turn it over to Tony to discuss the deferrals.
I think I drew the short straw tonight to go through the deferrals, but hi, everybody. I'm Tony Ganguza. I think I know most of you actually. So Dave, I'm not sure how you want to handle, you want me to just run through each one?
Yeah.
And go through the comments, or?
I think we should go through each one, discuss each one individually, and then we could go back if everyone feels we're in a position to move forward with.
Okay, great. I'm happy to do that. Okay, so the first one, and in talking with Dave, and I had some conversations with Anthony, obviously the reason this was broken up in order to try to separate some of the areas around the Greenway. So if it's okay with you, I mean, certainly we can start at one with Orfield Road and then work our way down. But I think the two that need the most discussion would be the ones related to Ritter Road and the trail area. So looking at the first one, Orfield Road, from the high school driveway to the north property line, it doesn't appear, based on the comments that I see, that anybody's debating that deferral. There's no, in that location, there's no PennDOT work being requested or proposed. We had asked for a waiver for road widening, curbing, sidewalk, and street trees. And I believe everybody, at least from the staff perspectives, is in concurrence with that. The only comment, I guess, is from the on the street trees was that they wanted us to work with, obviously, the areas by the trail. So I'm the way I look at everyone's comment related to that, including ours, is that a deferral would be in order. Now, it looks like, based on Anthony's comments on monumentation, that that's not necessary anymore. So I think that deferral would be removed, and because that we're in compliance with what is it? D? Yeah. We're in compliance with 1D. So I think we're looking for a deferral on cartway widening. We're looking for a deferral on curb and sidewalk. And we're looking for a deferral on street trees, again, from the Orfield driveway north towards Cedar Crest Boulevard.
Can I jump in there? Just help Tony out. In terms of the monumentation and the property, they're correct that they're not dedicating any more land. That was done in the 2003 plan. The requirement to either monument or put pins in was from that plan. So in theory, this plan doesn't propose a new property line. You don't have to repin a new property line. I think the intent or the ask is to at least get pins at the current property lines, right? That was dedicated from 03, because I don't believe anything's out there. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be monuments, but it would be nice to have those current right-of-way lines pinned.
Yeah, well, there's no reason to defer that. We would agree to do that. If it's a typical survey task that we would agree to do.
That makes sense then. And then in terms of the roadway improvements, and I don't know if you have a traffic engineer here, I guess we are in coordination with their traffic department. Generically, they're working through their submission. We talked to them a couple times about what would be necessary. Orfield Road will require a right turn lane into the site from the west going east, a right turn lane into the stadium driveway, if you will. They're going to submit to PennDOT. I think that the length of that was extremely long. It made sense to potentially shorten that. We defer to PennDOT. If you can get a shortened right turn lane in, it makes sense to us, because I think the big discussion here is the school is going to be busy for about 15 minutes every morning, 5 days a week, only during school. I mean, I think that's a good estimate, maybe half an hour. All the rest of the days there's really no traffic. So I think that the intent is they're working with PennDOT, determine the exact length. But for the roadway improvements along Orfield, you're gonna have a right turn lane into the site. So I would think that it doesn't appear that there's anything necessary Orfield north of the property line, which is what we're speaking of now.
Yeah, thank you. I can just elaborate on that a little bit just to help the planning commission. So we met with PennDOT actually twice. And I think we've come to at least a verbal and or virtual agreement. We're resubmitting today, in fact, that we're proposing a 250 foot, right turn lane on Orfield Road coming into the Orfield driveway. It'll be about a 90-foot taper, I think it is. We've also, and I don't want to jump to Cedar Crest, but I will, because we're talking about PennDOT right now. PennDOT, and we had met with Tony and Scott from Pidcock's office as well. And everybody was, I think, of concurrence that if we can extend that left turn lane on Cedar Crest Boulevard down to a requirement of around 580 feet, I think it is, Pete, right? That's what we would want. No dual lefts into the site anymore. Pidcock had raised that concern. PennDOT agreed with that concern. No dual lefts into the site. We're going to go single left into the site. We're going to extend that left turn lane from where it ends today down 500. I think we're extending it a couple hundred feet or around there, down to about 580 feet just before Ritter Road stops. So we're going to be widening a little bit in some areas, Cedar Crest Boulevard on both sides in order to get that extended left turn lane. So as of right now, I think Pidcock's in general agreement with that. I mean, it certainly requires more review. PennDOT's in agreement with general agreement with that because Pete and I had met with them to go over that. And TPD submitting the revised TIS today with that being shown. But going back to Orfield Road, there's no proposed improvements required and/or required from PennDOT north of the driveway. And that's what we asked for the deferral.
Anyone have any questions? Yeah, in a vacuum, and we generally discussed this at the last meeting. In a vacuum, that area doesn't have sidewalks or whatnot, but looking at everything as a whole, we'll discuss the walking trail at Ritter Road, but if the school's position is they prefer installing sidewalk, then we'll discuss pedestrian walkability and whatnot. But does anyone else have any comments or anyone in the audience? Yeah, you can come up. Just state your name.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tyler Clement. I live at 2748 Suncrest, which is just north of where the expansions are happening. Actually, if you wouldn't mind zooming in on that northernmost expansion, you can see how close my home is to the property. So specific to PennDOT, several years ago, I actually met with Tom and some of the other, I think when Glenn Dorney was still here and a few folks, to do a traffic study on Suncrest because of the speed of traffic around school hours. So just pose an open question to you. How fast do you think cars were going down Suncrest? 52? Any other takers? Nobody? 96 miles an hour. 96 miles an hour through a residential neighborhood. So while I respect, like there's certain studies that have been done, one of the things that I don't see on here are studies around Suncrest traffic. So I know we're talking about walking paths, but since we're addressing PennDOT studies and whatnot of this area, I do think that's something that the Planning Commission should take into account.
Yeah, and in terms of PennDOT studies, the applicant, they're required to do a scoping meeting with PennDOT. So they sit down with PennDOT, go over the project, and at that scoping meeting, PennDOT indicates, oh, you need to study this area, so forth and so on. And that's really dictated by PennDOT, who is the authority. So I'll ask Tony if PennDOT indicated any suggestions or requirements to study.
Yeah,
Pastor.
No, that's fine. No, it's surprising. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying that's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that it's going that fast. So there's a couple different things in play here. So what the applicant looked at is traffic generation, where the cars are going, not the speed. So I think that PennDOT's looking at how many lanes because there's going to be X amount of students in this. In terms of the issues with speed, I think that's a different issue. I think that that's something that the township can look at. There's a traffic calming policy in the township. I think that that's something that goes with the township. Tom's. Tom's over here to
Yeah,
talk about
I
it.
just want to clarify that the study, I mean, yeah, the top speed, there was one car that went that fast, and we don't know the circumstances behind that, but the average speed was 27 miles an hour, and the
Which
80th,
is the speed limit,
Right.
25, right?
right, and the 85th percentile was 33.9. So, I mean, you know, I just want to give a whole picture of the
Absolutely
situation and
understood.
not the
So-
one car.
So it's both speed and traffic. Like it is used as a thoroughfare just as Ritter is. So I think if we're going to consider this holistically, that is part of it, speed, quantity, right? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I guess the question is, do you know when the scoping meeting was held with PennDOT, did they ask for any investigation of speed or traffic calming for Sunset
I'm going to
Drive
assume no, Pete.
or Suncrest? Sorry.
No.
And that's, it's really a township road, so.
Hi, I'm Pete Spizak with TPD. So we did scope it with PennDOT. We also scoped it with the township. The township actually included a couple of more intersections than PennDOT did, so we did include those intersections as well. Suncrest was not listed on either the township or PennDOT correspondence.
Okay. All right, usually when there's a speeding issue, there can be police enforcement, there can be speed humps. I've seen it in my development. People have concerns, and then you can maybe have township police come by more often. I know some people like speed humps, but then they get put in, and then everyone hates that there's speed humps. Cars are going up and down bumps. Other than that, there's not much we can do. That's an off-site road. Anyone online that has any questions about? Okay.
So shall I move on to the next one, next section? Okay. The next section is exactly what we just talked about. It's Orfield Road from the high school driveway toward Ritter Road. So in this case, it's identified on the screen as number 2. That's the area where PennDOT has asked us to widen and create that right turn lane of 250 feet with the 90-foot taper. So in terms of the cartway widening and curbing, we are not being asked to curb that section by PennDOT, nor would you expect that because the rest of Warfield Road is uncurbed. So at this point, I'm not sure if that's a deferral anymore, or does that become a compliance item, or perhaps even a waiver to be granted because we are being asked and will comply with the PennDOT requirement to widen. We don't need to curb it, at least not as of yet. PennDOT has not asked us to do that. Now, maybe during the HOP, they may. But at this point, I believe they probably won't do that. So I'm not sure how we handle those situations where we are widening, not maybe to township specifications perhaps, but we're widening to the owner's specifications, in this case, PennDOT specifications. So I'm not sure exactly how that item gets handled, but I think we would like to ask for maybe that gets shifted to a waiver because we're now asking for that to be waived and/or complied. And maybe because we're not officially complying with the township requirements, I don't know that we can get a compliance, but I think maybe that's up for discussion.
It's historically, and historically through a bunch of plans, what we have done is deferred to PennDOT. So if PennDOT says, this is what we want the roadway to look like, and they show that PennDOT's okay with it, usually we just defer to their standards, and it's a deferral. I don't think it's ever been a waiver, but that's just normal. And since you're correct that you're bobbing in and out with the width of the road, and you're not doing some sections because the taper starts here, I think it's easier just to call it a deferral. And it's a deferral of township standards and we defer to PennDOT's requirements. And that's normally how we have done it in the past.
Okay. I mean, from the school district's point of view, certainly we would prefer a waiver because you all know that when you defer something, we're kind of kicking the can a little bit down the road. And at some point, somebody can ask us to widen it even further, even though the township really doesn't have any jurisdiction over Orfield Road. So that's why I would ask, and maybe it's not appropriate, but we would certainly ask to have that item resolved somehow, and that we're not constantly worried about the next shoe to drop on whether or not we're widening that even further. But it's just a comment that I'm making. Maybe we can move on from it perhaps, but again, we're widening.
If I could just jump in. So if I understand correctly, you don't have the approved plans from PennDOT or anything
No.
set in stone. So perhaps we wait until we have something concrete from PennDOT that says this is what they approve, and then we can have that discussion
Okay.
about waiver or deferral.
That's very fair. Very fair. Okay, sounds good. So we would continue to ask for a deferral on the curbing because we're not going to be putting curbing in. So we would continue to ask for that. In addition, we would continue, we're asking for the sidewalk waiver on that portion of Orfield Road as well, just like we did on the other side. And same with the street trees, which have also been agreed to by, I believe it's the Shade Tree Commission.
I think you just misspoke. You mentioned a waiver, but I think you're,
I'm sorry, I meant the.
okay.
Sorry. Same would be true with the monumentation.
So you're agreeable to put pins in to
course.
the monument. Any comments about questions?
I have a question. It looks like the Landscape and Shade Tree Commission. It's kind of a condition on your deferral request.
Right.
Are you okay with
We're
that?
good with that. Yep.
Just one note on the Shade Tree Commission. We had to cancel the last meeting, so they didn't get a chance to review these updated plans. So I suspect when you come back, we'll have a official.
And I think they're meeting
review
on
of
the
this.
28th, right? Yeah. Okay. Yep. Thank you. Okay, I think we're on to Ritter Road. So Ritter Road, from the trail west toward Orfield Road, for all of Ritter Road, at least for now, I think Herb and I have been going back and forth on that, and he issued an email and originally a review, and he asked the school district to, in support of a deferral for widening and curbing along the whole stretch of Ritter Road, he's asked the school district to contribute toward the mill and overlay of Ritter Road for half of Ritter Road, our half of Ritter Road. We're in agreement with that. I think it's a very reasonable request that Herb has made. Probably one of the more reasonable requests that I've seen in a while, that if the township doesn't know, he's asked that the township contribute toward the school district contribute toward the material cost, and that the township would be milling Ritter Road and paving it. We'd be paying for the material for our half of that overlay. And we've agreed to do that. I think it's in the tune of $42,000 or so, but that's something we're agreeable to doing. And he indicated that he would support deferring the widening and the curbing because he doesn't believe it needs to be done. And I'm not trying not to speak for him, but that's what he told me, and I know his deferral says that. His recommendation says that.
Just a note for Matt and I that would be the subject of a separate agreement.
Right. He did send the agreement too. Okay, so the only thing I would ask there, again, similarly to Orfield Road, I mean, we are making a contribution toward the paving. So does that satisfy the requirement? I know everybody keeps referring to these deferrals, and deferrals are fine, but from the applicant standpoint, deferrals aren't great either. And are we complying now with that requirement, or is that a waiver? Probably in this case, it's a waiver because we're not doing any widening at all. We're contributing in lieu of widening. Is that now a waiver? Does the widening and curbing become a waiver request because we are contributing toward the paving of Ritter Road on our side of the road?
I think it would be a deferral until the contribution. So it technically is a deferral.
Until the agreement and contribution?
Yeah, and perhaps something can be mentioned in the agreement that kind of addresses that.
Okay.
But I think for now it has to be a deferral.
Okay, so it becomes a waiver for widening and curbing once the agreement is signed and the money's paid.
I don't know if curbing becomes part of that waiver or not. The other piece that play on Ritter Road is the community development comments.
Yep.
We are going through a transportation plan and we're reclassifying roadways based on function and character. So in this case, it's a rural road, so we're anticipating changing those standards. Curbing may not be required under the new classification. So our recommendation is to defer until that's figured out. And that's kind of where Herb is going to kind of defer until we get that stuff figured out.
I see.
So I think a deferral is in order for that.
Okay. I think that's probably fine with us, considering I don't know that there ever will be curb on a road of that size. So I think for now we're fine with that. So we're talking about a waiver upon signing and paying on the agreement for the widening at least. And Matt, if I'm saying something I shouldn't say, please.
No, I just want
please
to add
jump
a
up.
comment in. I mean, we're prognosticating a bit on the future here, that none of us really knows what lays ahead in the future. You know, what other terms of activity, use, or development could occur down the road. So
I think that
Specifically meaning the school district even on their property.
on the school district well, he's speaking to the road and school
I'm speaking
district.
to our half of the road.
Okay, on your side of the road. Yeah, we don't know what the other half of the road.
Yeah, and we're not responsible for the other half. So it's I'm not referring to that at all.
Again, Tony, I think you mentioned a waiver, but
I apologize.
yeah.
Deferral.
So we're talking about a deferral conditioned on.
I'm sorry. I'm interchanging those words. I'm not doing it on purpose.
I'll catch you every time.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I've been going through this so much over the last week or two that it's you know. Anyway,
Tony, can you clarify? You said the deferral would be in effect until the payment was made or until the work was completed?
no, what Dave had said was, I asked that because we're contributing, does that then constitute a full waiver of the widening, right? And what David said, which I think is a good idea, that once the agreement is signed and the money's paid, that deferral then becomes a waiver granted.
And I wasn't sure is that accurately as to what we're trying to accomplish? I thought I heard that correctly. I wanted to make sure that.
Yeah, that was it.
I'm not sure how that works because waivers and deferrals go through the planning process. So I think it's still going to be a deferral, but I'm not sure how it's going to be effectuated.
Yeah, I've never seen a deferral converted to a
Yeah.
waiver.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I think
That's
it
why
just
we're asking for the
ends
waiver on
Per
that.
the terms of the agreement, which Matt and I will negotiate.
Okay. As long as it can be addressed that we're complying basically with a waiver request on that. Not on the paving. I mean, if we're contributing money toward the paving of Ritter Road, that's what we're doing, right? We've been asked to do that. We're willing to do that. Doesn't that then say that we've complied with getting a waiver for the widening because widening is unnecessary? In other words, why would we have to contribute to repaving of Ritter Road and then at a future point in time be asked to widen Ritter Road?
I think, Tony, what Tony Ganguza is trying to say is they're agreeable to pave their front half. They probably just want to do it, be one and done, do it once. So I think what has to be agreed upon is the extent of that mill and overlay, because the township is currently looking into recategorizing the road. So I believe the township would want that mill and overlay to be in agreement with this future
So
adjustment of the classification
what'll
of the
happen
road. So
is,
that's where the question
when
is.
we go to reconstruct the road, it'll be to township spec. Therefore, it meets that condition. So and technically, you don't need a waiver because it'll be paved to the new spec. So the condition will be met.
So the problem is
But I don't think you need a waiver. Is what I'm
the
saying.
school doesn't know what that spec is, and the township doesn't know.
Well, no, the town, I mean, it was pretty clear in Herb's email to me, and I know he copied Dave on it, and maybe Tom as well,
It becomes,
you know.
the condition would be met because it would be paved to spec.
Okay, well, as long as the school district is not on the hook for further widening once they've contributed.
I guess,
Noted.
would that be contingent on future development necessitating a widening? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I think so.
Would be, I think it would. I mean,
Yeah.
what we're talking about is just today and what the, and
Right.
Good evening, everyone. Matt Trainer, solicitor. Yeah, I think we're talking about just today's, as we look at it today,
Right.
understanding that there's a plan coming. But the school district's plan, at least for this project right now, certainly if something was to be done in the future.
Well, yeah, of course.
Time, but I don't.
And I think we'll have to insert a condition of some sort.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Line.
we could look at that.
Totally agree with that. It would only be today's application.
Can you please introduce yourself for the
Oh,
virtual
sure. Good
audience?
evening, everyone. I'm Matt Tranter, solicitor for Parkland School District.
You all set?
Yeah, so basically, my understanding is the applicant's agreeable to do the paving in accordance with the future spec that is to be determined.
The applicant wouldn't be doing the paving. They would be
Oh.
making the
Contributing the.
Very
the-
contribution.
Yeah, the
Correct.
dollar amount.
We're in agreement with Herb's email that he sent me that gave a dollar amount for the paving.
Could you speak into the microphone, please? The people online won't be able to hear
Sure,
you.
is that better?
I can't hear you either, so thank you.
Okay.
Diane.
So just thinking about the logistics of that though, and putting together the agreement and working towards the agreements as we, hopefully have a final plan approved in the next few months. And I don't know what the timing of the township's plan. So how would that work, or how would the township look at that from a legit, like, I guess, in determining that price and the contribution? Would that just be a future contribution? So perhaps even after plan recording or something to that effect?
I would suggest if we know that information prior to plan recording, that it should be paid prior to plan recording.
Okay. And then I guess alternatively, would the township want us to ask for a waiver of that until post plan recording or whenever that spec is available?
A waiver of what?
The payment, I'm sorry, a waiver for the signing of the agreement and providing the contribution prior to plan
Well,
recording.
the agreement would definitely have to be signed before plan recording.
Okay.
It's the timing of the payment, I guess, that we will have to discuss internally.
Well, you're saying you want to know what the spec is. Sorry to chime in, but before you sign the agreement, you want to know what the spec
Right.
you're signing up for.
Right.
So when do we anticipate that this new spec to be provided?
So I think Herb based it on the current spec.
Yeah.
That current spec is a 40-foot partway width.
Probably going to be larger than.
The potentially may be larger than the new spec.
So you're comfortable that
I'm
with that,
comfortable with
that
the
number?
current numbers. But I think, and going back to the waiver, I think it's a deferral until that agreement, and then once that agreement is in place and there's a payment, that condition is satisfied.
I think we're
Just, I want to clarify one thing. He did not base it on 40-foot cartway, or I think you just, no, it's 9 feet. So he based it on a 9-foot existing half of the road, which is 18 feet. So if the spec changes, whether it's widened in any shape or form, it will make that number higher, obviously.
I think that's the rub, getting a correct number, and maybe the township and
I think for the
applicant can work
purposes
it out.
of this board and when we get to BOC is just condition on that, an agreement, and then it can be worked out.
Yeah, and that's the challenging part for us as a district. We're stewards of taxpayer dollars, just like the township is, and we need to report back to our school board, and the school board needs to make decisions on these things. So having these kind of ambiguous, or not ambiguous, but loose numbers puts us in a difficult position in seeking the approvals that we need to move forward with our project. So that's why we kind of are focused tonight, and as we go on this evening, on certain financial ramifications and things.
So I guess one thing to consider is the current spec is for 40 foot. And in order to meet that current spec, perhaps the estimate should be for that widening to the current spec to get that number solidified and on paper. And then if it comes in less, or chances are the cost is going to increase with inflation, cost of materials. So I think we're probably talking, I don't know, a few feet. But in order to meet the current spec, maybe we redo those numbers on the 20 foot.
Yeah, but the 20-foot would mean that we're widening.
And that's the current spec. We don't know that yet. Well, right.
That was a recommendation.
But we have to look at what's currently before us under the current regulations. The current regulation is collector standards. So technically, in order to meet the collector standards, it needs to be widened to that width. I believe it's 40 total, so
I
20.
think we may or may not be complicating the issue, but I was not on the emails, and I'm looking at the email from Herb now, and he has a specific number and a calculation already. So if that's the number that we can all agree on, then there doesn't need to be anything else that happens.
And that's what I think
I just wanted to point out that number is not based on the 40 foot though. It's only the existing roadway. But if everyone's okay with that number, then to your point, it doesn't matter. But just wanted to make sure everyone understood that.
The Ritter Road is currently classified as a collector,
Correct.
Yes.
which would have a 40-foot cartway.
Yes.
But I think Herb's point was that he supports not widening. That was part of his answer was, I support the deferral to not widen if you repave it, your half. What his deferral says, I believe.
I don't see that in the email, but there could be other emails. And I told Herb to come tonight, but he refused. So
might be in his review, actually. Yeah, I think it's in his review comment.
And I think that's a detail that can certainly be worked out. And I think for the purposes of this tonight, it's just that the township and the school district come to an agreement.
Yeah, I think conceptually we're in agreement on our portion. It's just trying to, I guess, figure out the exact contribution.
Correct. And that's not something we can figure out tonight, unfortunately.
I really drew the short straw.
All right, yeah, the next one I think is the big item, because the walking trail, that depending how that goes, it could have a domino or a butterfly effect in the entire
Well, I think we're still on Ritter Road from Trail to Orfield, right? So in that particular case, I don't know that there's anything more to discuss, at least from township comments for that section.
Does anyone on the planning commission have any comments, questions about it? No? Anyone in the audience or online? Okay. We'll move on.
Okay, thank you. So now we're on to really the matter at hand, which is Ritter Road from the trail east towards Cedar Crest Boulevard. And again, I think the same on the cartway applies. There's nothing different there in terms of A. We're going to B, curbing would still apply in the same fashion as it did before, where we would be asking for a deferral. And the sidewalk, just a question on the sidewalk. I understand what the Community Development Department is asking. It's super clear. But would there be a sidewalk if there were a trail? So if the township's designing for a trail and planning to construct a trail, why would there be a need for a sidewalk?
Yes.
Is there a need for a sidewalk?
So, and anyone please chime in if you believe I'm misspeaking. The township's working on a walking trail design in that area. They have grant funding for the design. They don't have grant funding for the construction of the walking trail. So what we're asking is, per saldo, the school's obligated for frontage improvements. We're discussing deferrals and whatnot right now. But you know, the saldo requirement is concrete sidewalk. We believe the walking trail and the whole situation with the walking trail is a much better solution for the township, for the school. We're asking for that portion of the walking trail, you know, that linear footage of frontage along Ritter Road, and then there's a linear footage of frontage on North Cedar Crest. If the school would be willing to do a contribution as if the school was installing concrete sidewalks. So many linear foot along Ritter, so many linear foot along
3,400.
Yeah, I don't know the
I know what
specific
it is.
Number is, but you know, the school is by code obligated to do concrete sidewalk. So instead of doing concrete sidewalk, just provide that cost of construction be contributed to the walking trail, because we believe the walking trail situation's it fits a lot better with the character of that area. It's just along that southeastern portion. You know, if the school, you know, isn't obligated to do that, but the other alternative is sidewalk. And if we're going to put sidewalk in that portion, and we're probably not going to want to dead end it. We're probably going to want to extend it along all the way along Ritter. And if we're extending it all the way along Ritter, they want to extend it up North Cedar Crest and then extend it up Orfield. So I think this is it's a win-win for township and the school, just to provide the linear footage of that sidewalk to be contributed.
So I guess my question is, putting the trail aside, is sidewalk really needed on Ritter based on the use of Ritter Road and the lack of development and or use on Ritter Road?
The future use with the Jordan Greenway as proposed.
No, I know, totally understand. I'm just, okay, so sidewalk, well, it's certainly not needed from the trail toward Orchard?
From a planning perspective, yes, we don't know what's gonna be happen, and this is our opportunity to have the sidewalk installed. I think the walking trail is a much better option, but from a planning perspective, this is our opportunity to get the pedestrian mobility and walkability that's needed in the township.
But it's really not the township's desire to have the sidewalk.
If I may
prefer a
add, so
walking trail.
to Mr. Ganguza's point, regardless of the trail, through the township's transportation plan, it's been a goal to identify better routes to the schools, the high school, and all the elementary schools included. So this connection is on our active transportation network, regardless of whether that's sidewalk, trail, or what have you. So I think it, as the chair pointed out, it does line up well with our plans as where we are with design and where you are with, we'd probably be discussing sidewalk connections here at some point through this development. So we're looking for, and to specify, we're not looking for the cost of the trail, just the cost of.
I understand what's being asked. I really do. But I guess when the district donated the land for the trail, that's almost 4 acres of land, as part of that donation or that agreement, in that agreement, at least I understand it when I read it, and Matt probably knows it better than I do, but it was the intent then that the township would construct, at least what I read, again, under the cost aspect of it, that the township would design, construct, and maintain the trail. So now it sounds like to me that the township is asking the school district to pay for a portion of that, albeit through a willingness of the not installing the sidewalk.
I think that is completely incorrect. Under the agreement, the trail easement agreement, yes, the township said that, I don't know what the language actually is, but it said that it was design, maintain, whatever, install the trail. That is still true to this day. What we're asking you to do is, instead of fulfill your frontage improvement obligations to contribute the money to the trail construction, it's not that we're saying you're obligated to do anything with respect to the trail. In fact, we can't make you do the monetary contribution we're asking for. All we're saying is that it seems to make more sense from both parties' perspectives for the monetary contribution to take place, instead of requiring you to put in a sidewalk that neither you want or the township wants at this point.
I completely understand that, but if there's no need for the sidewalk, then why would we contribute to it? I understand what you're saying.
Because that assumes that you're entitled to a waiver of a saldo provision based on an agreement that never provided for that waiver. And if I had wanted to include that as a term in the trail easement agreement, we could have easily drafted for that. But that there's no quid pro quo in the agreement for that reason.
No, totally understand. I totally understand. But the school district obviously, I'm sure at that time, or maybe even now too, was under the impression that was going to be the case, right? They were going to donate the land and they wouldn't have
that would have been easy to draft for. But again, it's not.
I know where we are today. I mean, I totally know where we are today and where we were, but I would doubt that was the intent back then. But of course, you would know better. You drafted the agreement. Right? I think we can probably move on from it. I don't know that the district is. I mean, they'd have, as Matt said, we'd have to go back and talk with the school board about it. It's a hefty number. You're talking a couple $100,000 in sidewalk. It's 3,400 feet, 5 feet wide. It's a lot of money.
And if you build it today, or when this project is built, then the trail can get connected into the concrete sidewalk. There are portions of the Jordan Creek Greenway in the city of Allentown that are on sidewalk and concrete.
Right. I mean, if the school district's obligated to put the sidewalk in, then we're obligated to put the sidewalk in. I think we're okay putting the sidewalk in if the township.
We're just trying to make it a more community characteristic trail.
I totally understand, Brian. I really do understand. I'm just saying that if the township wants the school district to put the sidewalk in, I'm sure the school district would put the sidewalk in.
What's the material of the trail proposed?
Pavement.
It's a 10-foot wide asphalt trail for the specs.
What's the cost delta per foot, per linear foot between asphalt and concrete? The same?
I mean, I did the estimate of the trail. I mean, the trail, it's a heavy duty trail. The trail's, it's built like a road. Spec is a road, basically a road spec. I looked at it before and I did a cost
That's-
breakdown of the trail.
That's correct. And it was the township's intent to have those final cost estimates in the next few months. For a little bit of background, it had been the township's intent to secure grant funding to fully fund the trail. The grant opportunities we have been looking at are not eligible anymore. There's not funding available for that. The school district, if the school district were willing to contribute a portion of the cost, again, not half the cost of the trail, we're asking the cost of the sidewalk, which could be potentially a third of the cost of that section of trail, that would allow the township to have funding in place to seek other grant funding to show that we have a matched
Match.
contribution.
Totally understand that. I
And what we're
understand.
talking about is providing connectivity between the high school and the trail that will exist.
And the
Not
other,
this portion, but the one that's going to go all the way up.
it would connect to the existing 3 miles that are already
Yes.
down in the
Dark
parking.
road. Right?
Correct.
Yes, thank you.
Good.
I'm not sure there's much else to talk about tonight on this issue that I think the school district, would need to go back and chat with the board. It's a large expenditure between the trees that, which is the next item that everybody, is asking be donated, or I'm not, sorry, not donated, but either installed or contributed to, there's another $75,000.
In planning this project, though, you have to account for frontage improvements, correct? And so you can't count on the sidewalk deferral. And so all we're asking for you to do is substitute the contribution to the trail that you would otherwise have had to pay for the sidewalk. So it's
Totally
not
understand.
in addition or excess.
No, and I think all that we're asking for tonight at least would be the deferral. And if the answer is no, then we go back to the school board and we have that discussion. But as we sit here tonight, we're not prepared we can't agree to anything. I don't know what that looks like. So I think under normal circumstances, and I understand that the trail's there, it is what it is. We would have been coming and asking for a deferral. In this case, there just happens to be a trail that's planned in that area. That's what our request is, I guess, at this point.
All right, on to the next.
Yeah, Cedar Crest Boulevard from the high school driveway to the north property line. I don't believe there's much discussion to be had there. There's no proposed PennDOT improvements along that stretch. We're asking for a deferral of sidewalk and curb, especially with the curb not being any PennDOT related improvements there. And similarly, we'd be asking for the street tree waiver as I think agreed upon by the Shade Tree Commission. That stretch is similar to the stretch along Orfield from the driveway to Cedar Crest Boulevard. And then number 6, Cedar Crest Boulevard from the driveway south to Ritter. We are being requested by PennDOT to widen that road, actually on both sides of the road, in order to extend that left turn lane. So I think we would be asking for a deferral from that request as well, to the extent that the township's ordinance requires it to be widened, as well as the curbing. We're not going to be curbing Cedar Crest Boulevard because PennDOT's likely not going to be asking us to do that because the rest of it isn't curbed in that area. And then the sidewalk and shade trees are a similar comment that I made with Ritter Road about the contribution. I don't think that there's probably much more to add there. And in terms of the monumentation, we would handle that like we were going to handle the other monumentation and put that monumentation in. So that deferral can come off the table.
All right. Thank you.
I think that's it on the deferral part.
Yeah, so it seems, a lot of the decision making is going to be determined based upon how the trail sidewalk, gets hashed out. It seems like the school district's position is they would prefer to do the saldo frontage improvements for sidewalk opposed to doing trying a different option.
Well, that's not, well, I don't think that that's our position exactly. I think we're asking for a deferral, and if the answer is no, then we would have to regroup and
Okay.
make a decision at that point. But we're not standing here today saying we'd rather do a sidewalk than contribute to the greenway. And ultimately, maybe that's where we get to. I talked about this conceptually with Jennifer as well, and there's concerns. Our project's moving forward. We need our project to move forward either way, and we have time frames for this one and others that are going to be before this group, and we'll be here probably every month for the next 5 years. But to the extent that the Greenway project, and we don't know what that looks like in the time frame for that, if we come to some type of agreement and what that contribution looks like, because we are on a budget and again, we're dealing with taxpayer dollars, we have to be, we're to cross our T's and dot our I's on everything that we do. It may be a situation where, that's deferred until after recording or something to that effect, whatever that agreement looks like as far as a contribution, until such time as your project is actually moving forward. As we sit here today, while we understand that you want to do that and it would certainly be a nice project, it's not moving forward as we stand here today. So that's kind of one of the other issues that we're struggling with in agreeing to contribute to something that's a concept, and there's no definitive plan for.
I will just add to that because after I spoke with you yesterday, Matt, we did have some more internal discussions about possibly recommending a deferral of that monetary contribution contingent on the construction funding for the trail. The time period that was floated was 5 years. So if funding wouldn't be received in that 5-year period, then basically the deferral of the monetary contribution would convert to a deferral of the sidewalk construction at that point. So I don't know if that helps the issue. It's a deferral either way. So either you're putting in the sidewalk or you're making the monetary contribution for the same amount of money.
Yeah, and I think it does, or it may. I don't know. We'll have to huddle as a team. That's obviously new information, just kind of like the roadway redesign was new information tonight. So we're kind of just reacting in live time on some of these issues. But I think it's certainly something that we could take a look at.
We good on going through the deferrals?
Yeah, I think that's everything for the deferral and waiver request.
Anything else do we need to cover tonight?
And just to confirm, we're not in a position to act on any of these deferrals.
Yeah,
in my opinion. Seems like we're waiting on a lot from PennDOT, and that would maybe take care of a lot of our answers. So my opinion would be to potentially.
Well, I'm not sure that PennDOT will have much effect on the deferral requests because we're still going to need deferrals on the PennDOT stuff anyway, right? Even though we're doing widening and stuff, we're not widening to the township standard requirement because PennDOT's not going to require that.
Yeah,
So I think we're still going to need, I'm not saying you act tonight on the deferrals. I'm just saying that from a PennDOT standpoint, I don't know that that's going to hold anything up. I think the whole discussion about what we're talking about on the trail is really something that we need to have answers on.
Tony or Jennifer, but because Cedar Crest and Orfield are PennDOT roads, maybe I'm just not clear on it. There's nothing for us to defer if it's PennDOT's jurisdiction, correct? Don't they outrule our, outside of the frontage, I'm just talking about the roadway, cartway, widening and stuff. That part of the deferral goes away, right?
Every road in the township is classified, whether it's PennDOT or state, whether it's a state road or a township road, it's classified as collector or whatever. So there is a standard township section that says it has to be 50-foot wide with an 80-foot right of way, whatever it may be. PennDOT usually just doesn't build box roads. They have tapers in and out. So I think what's going to happen is you're going to have PennDOT say, all right, at this point, start the taper, widen out to develop 4 lanes and then come back in. So in essence, you have little triangle pieces around this roadway that we would defer and say, look, you don't have to build it towards this rectangular section the township recommends. It would just be towards PennDOT. So I think that while they're abiding by PennDOT, they're getting their PennDOT approval, we all say, PennDOT, this is your road. You tell us what you want. There's still a township deferral because it's not, you can't just look down the road and say it's 80 feet wide. So I think
That's exactly the conversation like we had on Orfield, where PennDOT's saying widen 250 feet. That's not our whole frontage. Our whole frontage is what, 5, well, at least from the driveway over, it's probably 500 or 600 feet.
Yeah.
So we're not widening all of Orfield on the whatever side that is, left side of the driveway. Yeah. We're only widening 250, right? So we're not doing the widening on the balance of that. So I guess that other part would be deferred and or really part of the stuff we're widening because we're not widening all the way to township standards because it's not required.
Do you have a sense of when you expect a written decision from PennDOT?
We're submitting, we have submitted, I believe, today, the revised TIS, right? So we hope to get it to go ahead from that in, I guess, 30 days, right, Pete? Take 30, and concept was included. So we hope to get a thumbs up on that. And we've asked Pete to start designing right now, even though we haven't got the thumbs up because, we need to move along with that PennDOT process. So we would expect within 30 days to have the TIS approved. And then hopefully Pete's submitting HOP plans next 60 days, I suspect, something like that, plus or minus 75. So yeah, well, I would think within the next, 60 days or 75 days or so, we'll be submitting HOP plans for both roads.
Very good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? All right.
Anything for me?
All right. Yeah, so we're not making any official votes tonight. We provided input. Our hope is the applicant takes that into consideration. They're going to regroup with the new information they obtained tonight and they'll be back. All right.
I do have one question for the residential homeowner. From one of the prior plan submissions, there was a talk about some landscaping work between the school district property and your property. Did you and the school district have a meeting and come to amends on that?
Appreciate the question, Tim. So I was actually coming here to make comments on that. So I did work with Arthur, so he came out to the property and looked around. Now, my reason for coming tonight was to actually address or ask the Planning Commission to consider including the remediation of the buffer zone as part of plan approval and this project moving forward, because quite frankly, I've been working on this since I moved here. So I've been working on this for 8 years and haven't seen progress. So I appreciate Arthur's comments earlier. He committed to following up, but I haven't seen anything yet. Initially, we had met in March and he committed to producing a plan on, planting things along the property line. And I also have spoken with my neighbors who are adjacent to me that also expressed an interest in having their property lines looked at because they are also right up against this.
And we may need to defer to zoning on that. I believe the zoning officer looked at it and provided input. And
I believe we have
the
a clean zoning letter.
I believe the zoning officer said the buffering is the
It-
adequate?
Yeah, it's adequate according to the township's buffer requirements. I don't know if there's any other.
Yeah, for what it's worth, this gentleman, apologize for your name off the top of my head, did work with Art Oaks, and the district is in agreement with providing buffering. I believe the plan is to run a line of arborvitae along the property line there, which would, I think, satisfy homeowner. So we will do that, and if the commission would like to see it on a plan, we have no problem with that either.
I mean, from a timing perspective, I don't.
You guys
our
can work that out independently that on a plan. All right, thank you. Yep. August start, you said, for that work? Okay, so in terms of tabling the plan, does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? None opposed, so moved. All right, agenda item number 5, direction and discussion, Jordan Valley Overlay Zone.
Would you like me to present?
Yes, please.
Sorry, I give the applicant a chance to step out. So I believe it was probably a few months ago, we talked to the Planning Commission about the potential optional overlay zone that we've been developing for the Jordan Valley, the pretty much the entire northern tier of the township. This came out of the township's comprehensive plan. As you can see here, the Jordan Valley is kind of a land use that we identified in the northern part of the township that had a lot of our natural resources, historic character, not much development there. And these pieces in between have been classified as rural residential, where there are existing neighborhoods. And then we have a large industrial zone on the eastern side. There's about 900 acres currently zoned industrial in the northeast part of the township. So staff has been working with consultants to develop this optional zoning overlay for the Jordan Valley. We presented 3 development types at the last time we talked, of the idea of a clustered residential, village residential, and then what we're calling Crossroad Village, which is a mixed residential with some commercial aspects that are reminiscent of some of the other Crossroad villages like Gooseville, Mechanicsville, that sort of thing. The third land use type was for a planned industrial, the idea of taking some of those buffering and open space concepts into the 900-acre industrial zone. As we've been developing the specific criteria and the regulations for the Jordan Valley overlay, it's been very challenging to have something that matches the needs of the industrial zone. So what we're proposing is to remove the industrial land use type under this specific Jordan Valley overlay and instead create a new industrial overlay that we are calling the Planned Innovation Research and Technology District, aka the PERT. We've seen other PERT districts throughout the country. Part of the other reason for having the PERT district in here is to address another need that has come across with the township, and the need to identify a definition and how we look at data centers as a use. Data center is a use that we've been tossing around for throughout the Jordan Valley as something that could be considered in this overlay. We definitely have seen a lot of interest of data centers in this part of the state. Getting ahead of this is probably the best way to try to accommodate anything that could come down the line as far as this. So The PERT district would also include definitions for data centers and some very specific provisions for data centers, which are much more, it's a newer use and much more complex use. So right now we are pursuing both the Jordan Valley optional zoning overlay, which covers again that clustered residential and the mixed use residential. And then we are also pursuing the PERT district, which would cover specifically the 900-acre area currently zoned industrial as an optional zoning overlay for data centers and similar types of uses for a tech campus sort of layout. The idea of having this as an optional overlay allows us to provide specific design guidelines and have the applicant actually follow those design guidelines so that you can encourage more of a campus style development, whether that's multiple uses in one project or individual uses and development of individual parcels over time. So we're in the process. I believe the PERT district is on the agenda for next week's Board of Commissioners meeting. And then we would be looking to introduce that more in detail at the next Planning Commission meeting. The Jordan Valley overlay, we are in the process of drafting that now and looking to engage some of our consultants to get that finalized. And then that would be presented to the Planning Commission probably later in the fall. So we wanted to just give an update on where we are with the these two kind of simultaneous optional overlays and let you know what will be coming forward in August, most likely for an action from the Planning Commission, a recommendation on that. So I think we'll probably end up sending out information on those well ahead of, usually we send out the packet about a week before, but as soon as we have more information from the those overlays, I think the request to the Board of Commissioners next week is to send the PERT to the Planning Commission, both to this Planning Commission and the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission for review. So look for that, review that, and please feel free to reach out with any questions. And then at our August meeting, we can expect to have more of a discussion and a request for a recommendation on that.
All right. Anyone have any questions?
Do any other municipalities in the Lehigh Valley have a similar overlay district, that PERT district you mentioned?
Not that I have seen. I don't know if there's any others that have something similar where it's a more of a office type of mixed use with industrial. Something we can probably follow up with the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission.
Yeah, I know
Okay.
pretty much every township. I don't know if the townships have anything with data centers specifically. It's
They don't.
yeah.
No, and that's a
There's
lot
several
of
looking at them.
yeah, that's a lot of what we've heard. We've received a model ordinance from Penn Future, and Penn Future is working with a lot of municipalities across the Commonwealth and trying to get them prepared for potential data center development because they are much more complex. Certainly, there's been a big push from the governor's office. If you've seen some of the news in, I believe, Bucks County and Luzerne County, some data center development there. And I think a lot of municipalities are kind of behind the 8 ball on this. So we're hoping to.
Very utility intensive, but no truck traffic.
And that was one of the reasons we initially started to do some research on it, was because of the low truck traffic, and started to look at what else comes in with the data centers.
Is there existing high tension power going through that area right now?
There are,
I honestly don't know.
yeah, it's
No.
not the highest
Been
tension,
decommissioned.
but it's
Well,
used to be there.
my concern is if there's existing right of way that power source would want to upgrade,
there's
and then
some
you're gonna-
existing right of way.
and then you're going to end up with
There's a
big
line
power
that
lines.
runs across the township, and then there's the line out
Yeah.
here, which these are the high voltage lines. I think they have to get from that and over.
There's decommissioned old
Okay.
transmission lines that they abandoned, but the right of ways probably still sit there in
Okay.
place.
The challenge you'll run into is you need at least a 230 kV line to get any type of reasonable megawattage for a data center. And then data centers nowadays are either water cooled, which requires an exorbitant amount of water consumption, or air cooled, or a combination. But your biggest hurdle is power. So while it's data centers, the new kind of shiny developer build out, you could easily spend $50 to $100 million just trying to get power to the site.
Yeah, and I
So
think
it's
one of
usually
the
prohibitive quickly.
yeah, and one of the reasons we want to get it in is currently we don't have it as a use provided for. So to kind of get ahead of that,
Proactive
yeah,
instead of
try and get
reactive.
some
Put
of
it
those
somewhere.
standards.
I would agree. And the only municipality I know in kind of nearby SWT Township in Harrisburg just did some rezoning for a golf course specifically for data center use because a 230 kV line with a brand new substation runs through there. And that's actually near 3 Mile Island. It's in that kind of part of the world. And I would also suggest, if you haven't already, check out the Virginia data center corridor. for
We've
their-
definitely
their
done a
ordinances.
lot of digging into Loudoun
'Cause
County.
I'm sure they have.
and the
I know
Virginia
they're out of
area.
power. That's why data centers have shifted to here and Ohio.
What does the township have so far for industrial scale solar? And would that be a permittable use in this PERT?
It would not be a permitted use. Well, we do have an ordinance for utility scale solar. I think it's industrial and IC1 are the zones that is permitted. So it would be permitted under base zoning, not incorporated as part of the overlay.
I think one of the things that we've been looking at with the overlay is just solar as an accessory use, but not industrial grade, similar to what we have in most districts. So if there's solar to power the site itself, but that I believe is probably an accessory use in most of our zones already.
All right. Does anyone have any other questions, comments? Move on to agenda item number 6, transportation infrastructure update.
If we want to rehash Ritter Road discussion, we can start over, guys. No, very little. Kind of dovetailing with changing with zoning and staying ahead of things. There's a lot of studies coming out about electrical vehicle infrastructure and charging stations in parking lots and retails, hotels, gas stations. So that's kind of something else that we should look at, maybe incorporating. ADA spots are one or two spaces every 50 or something like that. Maybe there's a similar thought to, do you need an electric charging station everywhere? I mean, you start to see them at grocery stores, things like that, but I don't know how much regulation or requirements we have as a township. So something to think about, but nothing much more.
I agree. It's something we should look at. I mean, we were one of the first to have a Tesla charger, so be on the cutting edge, that kind of stuff. Thank you.
So just additionally, we had mentioned that we received a grant to do a road safety audit for Hamilton Boulevard essentially between Cedar Crest and the I-78 interchange. We've engaged the consultant. We had our first visioning meetings. We've been working closely with PennDOT, LVPC, Lanta, and Dorney Park. So we have a good stakeholder group looking to kind of address some of the situations out there and the safety concerns for all road users. That project's underway with a deadline by the end of the year to have the plan wrapped up.
Speaking of that, Dorney Park, how's that moving along with their sidewalk?
I haven't ridden the roller coaster yet.
So
So
what?
the sidewalk, I think we just received word. We just talked to Herb and they got their HOP, I believe.
And I think Herb said that he talked to PPL.
That
The
was
lights,
PPL.
I think the lights are moving forward potentially
Yeah,
first.
so it's moving. I think they'll probably want to wait until after the season before they really start getting it, but that's moving on forward as well.
Yep, that's the time that we got, like October. You'll probably see the sidewalk.
Uh, just to add, I think we kind of mentioned the second phase of the transportation plan. We're pretty much through the first half of that. So what we're doing is that's going to be kind of an appendix to the initial plan. Again, this is the roadway reclassification, freight analysis, and traffic analysis. I think the plan is to probably maybe have a workshop
So
or
yeah, we
something.
have the consultants finalizing the data analysis component, which will have technical documentation with it. The intent is to take that, and whether we're doing a working group, we haven't figured that out. How we're going to roll it out and engage stakeholders for comment on that before we finalize. Use that data, their analysis, stakeholder feedback to inform the plan. So that's kind of the process for that piece of it. So keep an eye out for an email to look to comment on the transportation plan.
All right, thank you. And item number 7, courtesy of the floor. Anyone in the audience that wants to speak? Anyone online?
There hasn't been any comments online. Just a quick reminder, you all probably received the email from the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission for, I believe it's Tuesday, is a housing workshop here for Planning Commission members. I believe that's 3:30. But we encourage everyone to attend that. And I know a couple of people have already said they'd
3:30
be
when
there.
again?
3:30 here, and I believe this is the kind of Parkland area. So we're hosting the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission.
Okay, Lehigh Valley.
Yeah, and so I think it's probably South Whitehall, North Whitehall, and Upper Macungie.
So for next month, we have received application for St. Joe's Solar. Speaking of solar, so they're looking to put solar in to help offset some of the power costs for the church. So that's a project that'll be here next month. And then we have a small project for PPL. It's the training center on Hausman. They're looking to do sidewalk. So it's similar to the St. Joe's sidewalk in scale. So it's a really kind of quick and easy one. And we didn't get any resubmissions today. We may have to talk about Willows. They had done a submission for the last month for a round of reviews. They have not resubmitted any documentation.
What's Willows?
Willows is Calvary Temple.
Oh, okay.
They have not resubmitted any documentation or updated plans based on those reviews. So I'm anticipating that they will not be appearing. They are on the zoning hearing board August 7th. So my guess is they want to get the feedback from the zoning hearing board, make those changes, and then come back to the planning commission. But we don't have an official word yet.
All right. Agenda item 8, adjournment.
Second.
So moved.